Good evening from Swansea, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are listening to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, your one-stop shop for pro wrestling insight, news, and reviews on a daily basis. Last night's episode of Raw was certainly an interesting one, with holes appearing in the Judgment Day, Rhea Ripley being presented with a new championship belt, and a new challenger has appeared for Gunther. So we're going to get into all of this and more, but firstly, let me introduce who is joining me to talk last night's Monday Night Raw. Firstly, the co-host of the show, Clark Taylor. How are you today, Clark?
I'm doing well, man. It's good to be back. I had my day off yesterday and it went well. I mean, everything pretty much went smoothly. I didn't do a whole lot. Caught Monday Night Raw and I'm stoked to get into it. I'm happy to be back.
Absolutely. I mean, it feels like we haven't been on the same show for quite a few days now as well, because I had a
Right?
couple of days off as well, but we are back in action now. And also joining us, we have Dryzzy. How are you today, Dryzzy?
I'm good. Happy to be back. I finally let Ben go, guys. He's here. He's here. You guys missed me for the few days that we weren't on the same show together.
Well, we are back today and we are ready to go and we're ready to talk Monday Night Raw. And let's firstly talk with how Monday Night Raw opened. They had the Money in the Bank ladders on the stage. I mean, that's something which I always love. I love when a stipulation pay-per-view's coming up. They always have, the stuff on the stage. I love it. So I'm glad we got the ladders back. And then Rhea Ripley came out. They didn't announce ahead of time she was getting a new title, and understandably so, it was the exact same design as expected. But Adam Pearce gave the World Heavyweight Championship belt with a white strap to Rhea Ripley, and it truly, really did look awesome. I said this on the show the other day. I don't personally have an issue with the women's championships being the same as the men's at all. There was a big argument for it in 2015 for it to happen. And that's why WWE made that decision. It didn't just come out of nowhere, and it wasn't a lack of creativity. There was a big push within WWE for the women's championships to look the same as the men's, and that's why in 2016 then it was introduced. So I'm not going to complain about that at all. I'm just happy that not all belts are the same design now. At least there's one design on Raw and one on SmackDown. But Dominic Mysterio then ran down from from backstage, and the crowd went from cheering for Rhea Ripley to booing like crazy for Dominic. It was awesome. The heel heat he has right now is insane. And then Cody Rhodes, Clark's favorite wrestler, came out and interrupted after Dominic, of course, slapped him last week. And Cody Rhodes basically challenged Dominic to a match at Money in the Bank. I talked about this on yesterday's show. Cody, of course, missed the UK show last year. So the UK were going to be crazy for him over here when he comes to the O2 Arena. As for Dominic Mysterio, of course, he turned heel in the UK last year. So we'll be booing him heavily as well. So I think this is certainly a fun match to have on the card. Miz then tried to attack Cody from behind, but Cody saw it coming and then took out Miz. And this was a solid segment to start the show. But the one thing which just didn't sit right with me at all was this was Rhea Ripley's, title presentation. She was given a new championship. And yet the focus point of the segment was Cody and Dominic Mysterio. I love the Judgment Day. I think Rhea Ripley in the Judgment Day has been excellent. But it's just been the past month or so since she's won the championship. It just feels like she's, a sidekick to Dominic now. Like, she feels very important in the Dominic storylines, but she's the women's champion. She's now the world women's champion. She should feel important. These segments should be about her a lot more. She should be having her own feuds, which she just isn't having right now. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if maybe she's injured slightly, but she's involved in some physical stuff, so that would slightly surprise me. But it did just kind of frustrate me. This was meant to be a segment for Rhea Ripley, and they made it about something else. Even if the other few they have made it about, I am a fan of. But Clark, let's not talk about Cody and The Miz yet, because we'll get into that in a minute. But what did you think about this segment itself?
So I really love the title itself. The new one is awesome. My only complaint would be, obviously, I love the call out to the big gold belt that they they had even with the men's title as well. But with the white strap, it does look a little bit like the 90s Intercontinental title.
Oh, I didn't
That
even
would be
think
my
about that.
only complaint if I had to complain. But it's such a beautiful belt. It's so cool. What I really can't figure out is Ripley supposed to be a babyface or a heel? I
She's
was under
meant
the
to be a
impression
heel.
she was a heel with Dominic. She's not quite getting that reaction.
No.
And that's no knock on her as a performer because she's electric. But at the same time, it shouldn't take Dominic to get boos here, right? She's buried some baby faces of late, and maybe it's time to separate Dom and Ripley. Maybe it's time, if the intergender matches are in the cards, that's one I wouldn't mind seeing.
I will. I'm going to jump in though and quickly say this though, Clark. Right, something which you praised was the partnership between Don Callis and Kenny Omega.
Right.
And Kenny was getting a lot of cheers in all those segments before Don came out. So perhaps it's a similar thing here, where that even Rhea's so over that she's going to get cheered no matter what. But then adding Dominic into the mix,
they pulled the trigger on the turn. Yeah. I think for that reason, that would be my argument. And I think it's probably we're getting close to time because the reactions are so separate.
Yeah,
and it's unfair to both performers because they're doing such a great job. I think Ripley needs to ride the wave of being a babyface. I don't know how you get her there. You're gonna have to tell us a story, but
I think Rhea is having the same issue that Becky had some years ago. She was supposed to be turning against Charlotte, but the fans loved it so much. So now, what do you do? And this is something Judgment Day is firmly supposed to be a heel faction, and slowly you're seeing people cheering. Even Damian. Damian's getting a bunch of cheers now. So it's kind of the issue where Rhea is doing such good work, and they legitimately want to cheer for her. Nothing but cheers the moment she held that belt up. So you have to throw Dominic in there if you want to keep pushing that this is a heel group narrative.
Thing is, you've got to be so careful if they do want to turn her face, right? Because she is, like you both said, she's so over right now. But that entire badass kind of heel gimmick she has is why people love her so much. I've mentioned it on the show now a few times. I have tons of friends of mine who've reached out to me, who've seen pictures of Rhea Ripley, and have just thought her vibe and all that's so cool. And it's really intriguing people. So I think they want to be very careful and not hurt. You know, they don't want to hurt that vibe.
I agree, Ben. I think the true solution is the lone wolf anti-hero.
Yeah.
You do not take away that aesthetic. You do not take away that edge. But you ditch the group.
Yeah.
You ditch the group. You turn on the group because I don't need you, and I know I don't,
right.
and I never did. Lone wolf anti-hero is the absolute route you got to go.
The only issue I see with that is even with her. So right now, as her being a heel, she's like the top heel because there aren't any other baby faces for her to go against right now, or none that are at least built up to her level. And I think that's kind of also the reason why she's playing second fiddle to Dom and his feuds, and kind of vice versa, where Dom's playing second fiddle to her in her feuds. They don't really have anybody to occupy each other's space for them to go heads up against anybody.
That is a good point as well. And I mean, one argument why Rhea's not really having many feuds is nobody can really go up against her, even for the women's championship. I mean, they obviously did a very short feud with Natalya, which kind of was just completely pointless. And they also built that awfully, though, to be fair. I think now seem to be repackaging Natalya once again. This Raw Women's division, they need to start building people up, and they need to build up feuds for Rhea Ripley, because you have, which we'll get into later, the great mid-card feud between Becky and Trish. But it's, again, I praise WWE for having, a good mid-card women's feud. However, they've got a good mid-card women's feud, and they've decided to ignore the main title now. It's like, come on, do both. It is a little bit frustrating on that one, but now let's move on and continue talking about Cody, but talk about his match against The Miz. As like I said, at the end of the last segment, The Miz tried to take Cody out, but Cody saw it come in and then took Miz out. And the two of them went into a match, which was announced after Miz TV last week. And Cody was still wearing the cast, as predicted. And it was a fun match between the two. It was. as I said on yesterday's show, we've seen them compete against each other a few times now, and it's kind of getting somewhat repetitive. But they've got good chemistry together. It's always enjoyable. And Cody, thankfully, didn't use the cast to win, which would have been a blatant heel tactic, which I know, obviously, we talked about a lot on last week's show. But Cody didn't use the cast. And yeah, it was a solid match. But truthfully, I just hope we don't really see a match between the two again. Now, Clark, it's this time of the week where I ask you, what do you want to talk about? So, Clark, what do you want to talk about?
We'll talk about Cody. Last week I hosted, actually a week ago today, I believe it was. No, a week ago tomorrow with Dryzzy, 2-man show. And we talked about Cody, and we talked about the heel stuff. We talked about The Miz. We got some comments on that episode about The Miz, where basically someone compared MJF to The Miz. And that was a funny joke a long time ago. But if we're going to have The Miz buried by a guy with one arm, come on. I mean, I'm proud of Cody for not using it as a weapon this time. But one-armed Cody apparently is so good that he no-brainer beats a guy that headlined WrestleMania with John Cena. No problem. Easy money. Just with the one arm. So Super Cody's in full effect. Speaking of baby faces and heels, I don't know who was who in this one.
I mean, in fairness, Miz has been losing to a lot of people a lot lower on the card and a lot shorter matches in recent years.
And it seems to me also we're leading to now Cody and Dominic, because it's the one guy that we all know will boo on the other side of Cody. Really? That's what we're building towards. Let's make sure this isn't divisive. Let's not let him be polarizing like John. It's silly. It's silly. And yeah, you got the win by Crossroads, and that's adorable and all. But yeah, at the end of the day, am I excited about Cody versus Dom? No.
Oh, wow.
Even with one arm, I don't feel like Dom's that much better than The Miz. And Cody just disposed of The Miz with one arm pretty handily. Took Brock to the brink twice. Now we get to see him. I mean, he's got one arm. He might use it as the weapon again. Who knows? If he decides to do that, then how could Dom possibly beat him, even with only the one limb?
It's a good point. It is, but I mean, we got Carl Kinahan in the comments. Shout out to Carl. And we used to be on a podcast together a long time ago, and he is saying, lads, calm down. Cody is still super over, and I mean that is a very good point. He is super over. I'm not worried about the crowd turning on him yet. If they continue with this arm stuff and him beating people with the cast, then yeah, maybe. But they didn't go in that direction last night. The crowd are still going nuts for him. And like you touched upon, Clark, Dominic, putting him against Dominic is a bit of a safe bet. But we've also got another comment from Carl who's saying, to be honest, you can imagine in the UK Dominic could get cheered and Cody gets booed. Well, here's the thing: it's not a small crowd in the UK, but I think it's about 15,000. It'll be in the O2, so it'll be a relatively small crowd, and it's a crowd which sold out in the pre-sale. So I mean, me and Chaos were on it for we were on it hours before getting ready to try and get tickets, and Chaos managed to get a couple. I couldn't even get any for the show, but it's going to be a super hardcore UK crowd, so maybe it is one which will be a bit hard to predict. I still do think, though, they'll be rooting for Cody, but we just got to kind of wait and see. We've also got Source King in the comments saying it's kind of embarrassing for Cody that they put him with the one guy.
Yes, sir.
Who they know will get boos for sure. I mean, yeah, basically agreeing with what Clark said there. And then we have another Taylor in the building, as Rick Taylor is here, and he is saying, anyone old enough to have watched Dusty's work throws up every time Cody wrestles.
Let's go.
I mean, Clark,
I'm just saying,
just doesn't like Cody, do they? Oh, sorry, I know you usually say that
Even
you like Cody, you should expect more from him.
understand that I expect so much more. I mean, just like the rivalry he built and being the historian that he is with the original, the blood and guts between him and his brother in AEW,
Mm,
and all of everything he did to build to this, to come out and hand us what we've been handed outside of the Torn Pec rivalry. The Torn Pec rivalry, that made sense. Everything from Mania, the debut, to then made great sense. Everything else has made more sense on paper than it has been in action. And
fair
that's
enough.
so frustrating to me is I think Cody Rhodes could be the most captivating wrestler in the world, but he doesn't feel like that. He too feels too forced, and he feels too I want to say generic, for lack of a better term. It,
Mm,
it's a lot of eh, and I go back to the little details that bug me. The suits. It bugs me to death. He's a baby face. Put on a jeans and a t-shirt. Be the everyman if you're going to be a baby face,
it is.
right?
It's pretty much the
Be
opposite of what his
relatable.
dad was.
Yes. He looks like the buttoned up corporate guy that you
Mm,
wouldn't trust. And it's such a simple thing, small thing, but if he's going to be healed, then it's great. But he's not. And
yeah.
people don't love people in suits with tie clips. They just don't. No matter how successful they are. And it doesn't all add up to me, right? Even like simple other little things he does with the wearing the weight belt. Like he's not a weightlifter. It's cool when he gives it away. It's a babyface thing when he gives it away. But then sometimes he doesn't, sometimes he does. You never know.
They are expensive, to be
And
fair.
they're always expensive and custom, and which is cool and all, but it's not. It's like Hogan wore the weight belt later in his career, especially closer to when he turned heel.
Yeah.
If you look at Hogan in WrestleMania 3, he's not wearing a weight belt. He's in trunks, and he's the true babyface. And I'm not comparing Rhodes to Hogan in the least or whatever. Like, my opinions on Hogan. I'm not a fan at all.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Cody has everything in place to be the ultimate babyface, to actually land in a way that we haven't seen since the early Cena run, since Stone Cold's initial run, all of that. But he doesn't do it. He looks like the corporate schleb, right? He looks like the old EVP.
Well, we got a couple of comments about this. We got Carl saying he strongly disagrees, as Cody is being himself, and that's why people like him. And then we got Rick Taylor here saying 100% right. He's not the IRS. Oh, I mean, it is very interesting though, and like we said, it is the complete opposite to the gimmick his dad had. And I know obviously he's the American Nightmare, and his dad was the American Dream, but if you're going down that route, then yeah, he'd be a heel. So there's a lot of different factors here, and we could talk about this, and I'm sure we will talk about it again because we talk about it every Monday. But now let's talk about a segment which I actually did like on the show last night, and that is Becky Lynch and Zoe Stark. And Becky came out and cut a solid promo about Money in the Bank. She kind of stumbled a few times, but she saved it, and she saved it really well. Zoe Stark then interrupted, and this is when it really got great. The two had a really great exchange on the mic. I wish that it kind of went longer, and then Zoe Stark got in the ring. They got face-to-face, maybe had a bit of a brawl. Even though that stuff is a little bit overdone at times, the brawls, I think in this situation, it would have worked, and it would have worked well. Because the promo between the two was brilliant. I really, really enjoyed it, and it made me care a lot more about the feud between the two. However, then they really hurt the segment by having Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville come out. And it feels like they just kind of come out in tons of these feuds for no good reasons, especially Sonya Deville. They just book her in just to have for impromptu matches, basically, a bit similar to The Miz. And this segment didn't need it. This segment should have just been Zoe Stark and Becky and really hype that up, really hype up the Money in the Bank ladder match. And that was what was being done until the interruption. And then we got Becky versus Chelsea Green, which was fine. Nothing bad, nothing good, just fine. But Drizzy, what did you think about this segment?
They're doing exactly what we thought they would do with Zoe. She's the cat. She's the proxy for Trish while Trish is off doing part-time things. It it was a. I can't say I was a big fan of the segment. It kind of felt a little off. You could tell Zoe just wasn't all the way comfortable, but she ultimately got the job done. She made her presence felt. I'm hoping that for the next couple of when was we got like 2 more weeks till Money in the Bank. I'm hoping they give her another chance at this because the only thing that just felt off was just she just didn't feel comfortable. Like, and
Yeah.
I know being with Becky, it does that sometimes because she is such a polarizing person, but she didn't crumble, she didn't fold, she didn't back off. She just felt a little uncomfortable. I'm okay with
Mm,
that.
yeah. I mean, do you think that what did you think about the match between Becky and Chelsea Green? Do you think that was necessary, or do you think it wasn't really needed for this segment?
I felt like it was more necessary because Becky's the face. I see
Mm,
why, but I felt like it would have been a little bit more effective if it was Zoe because Zoe's the one that has the most to prove.
true.
Becky, she doesn't have to be in Money in the Bank. She can, like Charlotte does on Fridays, walk up and ask for a title shot. But Becky, the good guy, I'm gonna work for everything that I want and everything that I feel like I deserve. It makes sense.
Mm. No, that is a great point there. And now, talking about Money in the Bank, let's move on to the next Money in the Bank match, which was Damian Priest taking on Matt Riddle for the final place in the men's Money in the Bank lineup for this year. It's filled up fast. It certainly has. But before the match, Priest told the Judgment Day that he wanted to win on his own today, which was a little bit of a dig at Finn Balor, who the entire segment when the Judgment Day were backstage, he was just completely focused, was basically not even listening to them talking. And as soon as Priest said that, Finn Balor just locked up. And there's certainly starting to be some holes in the Judgment Day, which we'll get into in just a tiny little bit now. But Priest walked away then, and Priest and Riddle had a really fun match. Fantastic. Maybe my favorite out of any of these Money in the Bank qualifying matches. I really enjoyed this one. I was surprised though. Damian Priest won and he won clean. He really did surprise me, especially as we find out later in the show, Riddle's going to be feuding with Gunther. Well, he just lost to Damian Priest clean. I mean, Priest is meant to be the heel. Have him cheat to win or something. Protect Riddle a little bit more if you're going to give him a title shot. But really fun match. And yeah, Priest deserves to be in that Money in the Bank ladder match for sure. I just kind of wish it wasn't fully clean. But Clark, what did you think about this one?
I totally hear where you're coming from on the way it was booked, but I really do enjoy seeing Priest go over. He's kind of earned it.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of Scott Hall in him. Is what I would say, man. And I start seeing it more every week. I know he's always done the surfboard walkout in honor of Scott as well as the Razor's Edge, but it's starting to look even better. And to put him in a ladder match like this, I dig the win clean. I'm wondering if this Riddle off-screen behavior stuff is starting to catch up, because you would logically think this is a spot for Riddle to really show what he can do and get back in the Money in the Bank match. We thought he might have won it last year. I don't even know if he's in the conversation anymore. I don't know if he's in a mid-card title conversation. I don't know where he is right now. I don't know what we're doing with Riddle or where he's going, but that needs to be figured out at some point. For the time being, I love the Judgment Day splitting up and everybody else being better for it. I really love that idea. I know I don't want to get ahead of myself, but let's have Priest be as over as he can be. Ripley as well, and let Dominic continue to garner heat and figure that out. And let's give Finn Balor a shot to be Finn Balor.
Yeah,
he's supposed to be the leader of this group, and it's just not what we're seeing. I know we're going to get into that, so I wasn't trying to jump the gun, but that's something I'm looking forward to. And yeah, that's kind of what I got.
And in fact, we'll just get right into it from you, Clark. Following this, we had Finn Balor come out. Sorry, not Finn Balor come out. Yes, a couple segments later, Finn Balor came out to the ring. And of course, after earlier in the night being deep in thought during that segment with Damian Priest, Finn Balor came out to the ring and called out Seth Rollins. And this segment was certainly an interesting one. I mean, earlier on we had a comment from Carl here saying the crowd ruined the segment for him. For me, it made it. Finn Balor invited Seth Rollins out. They were both in the ring together, and then Finn Balor started talking, and the crowd just started singing Seth Rollins' song, as they do every week. And Finn Balor cut a really great promo. He seemed really bitter in it about 7 years ago. You could see he was finally opening up about how, what happened 7 years ago has held him back. It's obviously, acted, but it kind of felt partly real as well. And it was phenomenal. And the crowd just singing through it the entire time and making Finn Balor more and more bitter. I thought that improved it. I thought that made it even better. I think this is one of WWE's best segments of the year. I think it's probably the best one of the year, which isn't Bloodline related so far. Rollins basically said, I want to see the Balor, which I saw 7 years ago at Money in the Bank, not the one from now. And it leads to the question, is Finn Balor going to leave the Judgment Day? After the segment, and we'll connect this as well. After the segment, we saw Finn Balor talking to JD McDonough backstage before Damian Priest came up to him, and Priest congratulated Balor on getting a title shot, and Balor congratulated Priest on earning a spot in Money in the Bank. And then Balor said, well, you won't cash in on me, will you? And Priest was like, I can't believe you'd even say that. It seems very, very much like the Judgment Day is crumbling. I'm very intrigued into it. And we got an interesting comment here from Carl, and he is saying, I don't think the Judgment Day will break up, but I feel JD McDonough will turn on Finn and join kicking Finn out. Well, that's certainly a theory which has been going on. It was on our Instagram page earlier. It's on Twitter. A lot of people think that perhaps Finn Balor will recruit JD to the Judgment Day, and then JD will kick him out. Entirely possible. I wrote the article on WrestlingRepublic.com last month saying, I pitched basically how I thought the JD McDonough and Finn Balor feud should go. I didn't think either of them should be in Judgment Day at the end of it. I thought that, Balor would feud with JD while he's in Judgment Day, and then Balor gets kicked out of Judgment Day following it. Obviously, they're not going in that direction now, but this segment I loved. Judgment Day right now, it's obvious they're probably breaking up soon, but it's the best thing on Monday Night Raw. Clark, I know you've given them a lot of criticism. I don't think they deserve it a lot of the time. I think they are top guys. And Carl saying his boy Finn Balor deserves better. Shard is in the comments. Shout out to Shard. And he is saying Finn played the crowd singing well. And he's also saying he thinks that Priest gets kicked out and they add JD. So there's a lot of different theories going on here. But Dryzzy, let me go to you first. What do you think is going to happen to you? And what did you think about this Balor and Seth Rollins promo exchange last night?
The way it went, I do think that Balor handled it wrong, because if you're truly bitter and you have people, thousands of people singing in your ear, at some point you got to start yelling at people like, hey, listen to me. Something like, I've waited 7 years. Your bitterness should be almost bubbling up and in your gullet that you can't even keep it in anymore. He should have kind of went nuts in that whole process. But that's also a different me internalizing it and thinking of how I would play that situation.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I'm a fan of what he said. It's just I wasn't a fan of how he said it.
Yeah.
And as far as the way that the Judgment Day, this whole thing goes, I do believe that there's going to be turmoil, but I do not believe that anybody's going to leave, actually. I believe they're going to bring JD in, and it's going to become a bit stronger, and it's going to get better before it ultimately disintegrates. Like, JD's going to be the thing that lifts everybody up to its highest of highs just before it takes the plunge.
Wow. I didn't even think about that, but that's certainly something which I could see happening. A great point there. Personally, I did enjoy the way that Finn, performed in the segment, and he didn't address the crowd too much. You are right there. And if it was somebody like Seth Rollins, I'd completely agree with you. He needs to be going nuts at the crowd. But Finn Balor's kind of a bit more of a reserved person, which is why I didn't mind it as much that he didn't address the crowd. He was just venting his frustrations at Rollins directly. And yes, you could see the crowd was still making him more bitter about it. But he wasn't going crazy, because that's not who Finn Balor is. He's somebody who is more of a reserved character. And that's why it's built up inside of him, that bitterness, not anger, bitterness. I do like what you said as well, though. Perhaps JD McDonough will just join it and everyone be one happy family for the time being. But Clark, what about you? Do you see a turn happening here from anybody?
Oh, man, I have so many thoughts on this one. And it's a really fun one to mess with because of the Finn and Seth history. We saw him poke him in that shoulder.
Yeah.
We saw him poke him in that shoulder last week. Just a week ago. Not that long ago. And that is so important to build. I don't want them to skip a step. I don't want them to just dive right into Finn as if he's ready for Seth right this second. Like you said, a bitter Finn. Find a way, whether it's JD worming his way in or it's JD denying his old mentor. Find a way to put Finn back on our radar as, wait a minute, doesn't he deserve that rematch after the way the Universal title thing went down with Seth? And then Seth's the inaugural champion. There's a heck of a story to be told here. There is. We need to get Finn to that point. We've spent too much time. We buried the freaking demon with Roman Reigns, but let's get back.
And then Edge again.
And then Edge again and all of that. I don't need to see. Now, if, hey, this is out there, you know what might be great? Because I love that Seth Rollins is a great babyface and everybody cheers and sings his song. What if he's the invisible hand? What if he's the one in charge of the Judgment Day and they all turn on Finn? And then Finn can be the babyface. And then they slowly but surely turn on Seth. He's the visionary. What's his vision? Is his vision only individual? Because Monday Night Messiah was the leader of a group. Visionary would imply that there'd be a group behind you. I mean, what if it was all my idea? Oh, I convinced Dom after our match when I wore his dad's gear. This has all been in the cards. This was all mine. The architect, right? The visionary, the architect, the guy. It'd be the ultimate turn, the ultimate insanity. But why not?
I honestly hadn't even thought about that. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I don't see that happening. I think Seth on his own right now. I think for his character as well, being on his own, because that's the point where he's gotten to where he's just kind of just gone nuts. I don't know if I'd like that, to be honest, but it also would make a lot of sense too. I've got a few more comments here. We got one from Carl saying he was in JD McDonough's class at Finn Balor's wrestling school. That's sick. I actually didn't even know that, Carl. But we've also got Anthony Manzano. Shout out, Anthony, who's saying, honestly, I can see them adding on top of JD McDonough. He'll probably bring in Kaylee Ray and Isla Dawn as well. I mean, I think they're on SmackDown, unfortunately, so I don't think that one would be possible. But then again, the brand split, it's not always followed, is it? I mean, Carl saying, Clark, there's some Vince fucking there.
Sounds like a Cody Mark show's earlier comment with all the typos.
Oh, Clark versus Carl.
Whoops.
Battle of the co-hosts. Let's make that happen in the future. But no, I mean, certainly, I'm going to be honest there, Clark. I did not even think of that one. I don't know how I feel about it, but it's creative. And I certainly love that.
Yeah, Vince booking. That's sweet of Carl. Jeez Louise, man. Be a little more open-minded.
It's creative. I will give you that. I didn't even think about that.
I was brainstorming.
I love looking at all these different possibilities, and that didn't even come up to me. So, I mean, I certainly like the idea of it, but in practicality, who knows whether or not it will happen. But we've complained about the Judgment Day for quite a while. I've been more of a supporter of them since WrestleMania. Well, even before WrestleMania, I started to become more of a supporter of them. But like it or not, I don't think they should split up right now. Maybe you do kick Balor out and bring somebody in or do something. Maybe you can slightly alter it, but I don't want them to split completely because they're so over. They are. What we're talking about every single week on Raw. Raw is the Judgment Day show, and I think they will be missed a lot more than we expect if they did just split up. What I do think they need to do is focus on booking Rhea Ripley better and giving her some solid storylines, because come on, she's the world champion. She's doing amazing views on social media. Even TV ratings are good for her, right? It's a no-brainer to have her in big feuds. Why are you just putting her with Dominic all the time? Them two being together, I think the duo is brilliant. But have them both have, storylines going on, and sure, they can both be involved in each other's storylines, but just give them both storylines. Come on now. It's very easy. And we've got one more comment here from Anthony Manzano saying, Clark, that's way better booking than Vince. That's Triple H booking there. So Anthony Manzano likes that booking.
Thank you, Anthony. Shout out Anthony Manzano, no doubt.
And yeah, I mean, it's certainly one which is creating a lot of arguments, which is what this show is all about. I mean, Drizzy, would you like to see what Clark pitched?
That is a lot. And you know what? If we were getting towards Survivor Series and we got toward that, like if the bloodline was still intact, I'd probably be on board with it. But that's a lot. That's a Stretch Armstrong stretch right there.
Oh, that's a great quote.
I hear you there. It is a lot of steps along the way, but I mean, there's just it's there.
It's just we get to the middle of the ring and the Judgment Day's around and there's a hooded guy and they're like, "It was me, Balor. It was me all along."
It's always been me.
Oh, this is give us the buck, Triple H. Give us the buck. But let's now move on to what the main event of Monday Night Raw was, and it was Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens defending their WWE Tag Team Unified Championships against Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser. Now, we had a question in yesterday's show why it was Ludwig Kaiser and not Vinci wrestling. Well, Vinci's injured. That's the storyline for it. And also, if you didn't watch Raw and you just watched the podcast yesterday, then you might be asking yourself, well, hang on, I thought this wasn't a title match. Well, earlier in the night on Raw last night, Gunther and Kaiser basically pitched the tag team match. They said, we want it to be for the tag team titles. And then Kevin Owens just exploded into a rant. Completely unnecessary rant. He just got all fired up out of nowhere and accepted it. And Sami Zayn was kind of looking like, what's going on here? Zayn then went to the locker room to do a wellness check on Kevin Owens, and Owens said that no, he's fine. He's just been having a lot of outbursts lately. There's one thing after another, but he's fine. Owens then walks away to get some water, and Sami Zayn's like, yeah, he's fine. He's fine. He's fine. He's not fine. Kevin Owens is not fine. I don't know where this is heading, but it'll be interesting. Anyway, in the match itself, I'm still not entirely sure why it really happened. But it was a fun match. It was certainly a good main event for Raw. And the match ended with Riddle running out to the ring. Real heel move there. And admittedly, they did try and attack him last week, to be fair. But anyway, Riddle came out running to the ring. Gunther chased after him. They managed to separate them. Gunther got a couple of strikes in on Riddle. Riddle obviously got nothing on Gunther. Otherwise, it would have been a disqualification. And then out of nowhere, Kevin Owens hits Gunther with a DDT, I believe it was, onto the ramp. And then Sami Zayn is in the ring with Ludwig Kaiser, Blue Thunderbomb. 1, 2, 3. Zayn and Owens retain their championships. Now, the big thing is, where's this going with Kevin Owens? Why is he exploding all of the time? And also, why is Riddle getting a title shot when he's just lost the Money in the Bank qualifying match clean? Drizzy, I'll go to you first. What do you think about all of this?
First off, in Kevin Owens' defense, Imperium is breaking the rules. In all of wrestling, you do not come out or anything until somebody says your name or alludes to something that it pertains to you. You don't break those rules. These are unwritten rules in the steno pad of pro wrestling. You do not break these rules. Kevin Owens is justifiably angry. I don't know why this match happened. I'm not. But again, as you get with Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Gunther, Ludwig Kaiser, and Giovanni Vinci. It's great wrestling.
Mm.
It does have a story that has taken over, that has gone on for a few weeks, and I really don't see where we're going with it. But it's like, okay, it's good wrestling, so let's just kind of ease on down the road with it. It might take us to somewhere great. I do believe this is the early siege to the Kevin Owens Sami Zayn split, and we'll get yet another Kevin Owens Sami Zayn WrestleMania match. Because if you notice over the last few years, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn in WrestleMania have had their hands in each other's hands in some capacity for most of them, since both of them have been on the main roster.
Yeah, it's true. That
Okay,
is a
this is
very, very
random.
good point.
I wonder if they have a record, like if you were to add up, given the tag match as well, and the amount of times they've faced, if they've been in the ring together the most times of anybody at Mania. I wonder if that adds up. Because, right? I mean, I'm sure there's another tag team that's close, but if you include their one-on-one encounters, they've been in the same ring together maybe the most in Mania.
I mean, I know New Day's higher.
Yeah, New Day's got to be.
Day.
You're right. New Day's got to be higher.
Maybe the Hardys.
Maybe the Hardys.
Yeah.
Man, it's close though. That's interesting. I wonder if that's a record they're chasing. Who knows?
Yeah, because they were what kind of for a couple of years they were kind of on different brands, and that's
Right.
that's the only time when they weren't whenever they've been on the same brand for the most part, it's been intertwined in some way or another. But certainly, I mean, it's gonna be split. It's gonna go down. Honestly, their friendship feud. It's gonna go down in the history books. I'm absolutely certain about it. And you may also make a great point, Dryzzy. It is an unwritten rule. You cannot interrupt someone if you're not mentioned in wrestling, right? It's just, you can't do it. But Clark, what did you think about this? And what do you think about Riddle getting a title shot despite the fact he lost earlier in the night?
So Riddle loses to Priest and gets a title shot. I don't like that. You know that. You know me. You're coming to the right place for that one. If you wanted that take, I can't stand it. And I like Riddle, and I think he deserves a great run. I think he'd be awesome against Gunther. One of my favorite triple threat matches I've ever seen in my whole life is on the network, aka Peacock. It's a Progress Wrestling 3-way between Gunther, Walter at the time, Riddle, and Timothy Thatcher.
Oh, that was good.
And I believe it's the longest I've ever seen a 3-way match go without anybody exiting the ring to rest outside of the ring. I believe it goes 10 consecutive minutes of just pure striking, and all three are still in the ring. Nobody rolls out. There's no rest time or any of that. It's just fighting for 10 minutes in a row. It's one of my favorite things. So getting Riddle and Gunther on a WWE pay-per-view, yes, I'm all for that.
Yeah, I mean, we got
Did obviously you build it properly though, right?
Yeah, I mean, you and Carl have disagreed. Carl in the comments on YouTube, you disagreed throughout this show a lot, but you're agreeing on this.
We're back.
He's a big OTT fan,
like
Carl.
Carl,
and
we're back.
Riddle versus Walter on a pay-per-view. I don't care how we get there. That'd be brilliant. Well,
I hear you, Carl. We're back.
I'm a sucker for a story, so I would like a bit of story.
Same.
But you're right, it's gonna be phenomenal, and a great shout out and match recommendation there from you, Clark. But that's pretty much brought us to the end of the show, guys. It's absolutely boiling in the UK, if you can't tell. I'm gonna need to jump in a cold shower immediately following this. But yes, thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe, and even a cheeky comment too. They really, really help us out. We're here every day for you guys. If you don't like it, if you can't watch them live each day, we have them on demand each day on Spotify as well. And you can have your phone turned off for that too. So there's benefits of watching on Spotify. But yes, we'll be back here an hour earlier tomorrow, if I'm correct. And we will be previewing AEW Dynamite, and it'll be a big AEW Dynamite indeed. But thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you to Dryzzy and Clark for joining me here on this show today. And for all your wrestling news, reviews, opinion articles, and more, stay with WrestlingRepublic.com. With fans, for the fans, without the dirt. Thank you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.